By now, if you haven't heard about the massacre in Aurora, Colorado at a movie theater during the midnight screening of The Dark Knight Rises, you live in a cave or in a shack in the woods. And this isn't going to be about what I think of the massacre or the murderer himself. I mean, I hope they stick a pipe bomb up James Holmes' ass, hang him upside down, and detonate him in the Pepsi Center for everyone to watch, and maybe get the chance to take home a souvenir arm, with ticket proceeds going to help the families of the victims to pay for hospital bills and funeral costs. But that's beside the point. No, this is about an article I read on naturalnews.com, which might as well be called ramblingconspiracybullshit.com, but I assume the URL was already taken. The article claims that James Holmes was actually a government plant, and the massacre was staged by elected officials as the beginning of a plot that would result in the repeal of the Second Amendment right to carry firearms. And I'm not going to get in the whole right to bear arms debate. I'll only suggest that anyone who thinks it should be legal for just anyone to own an assault rifle is a drooling idiot, but they might be the same fucking drooling idiots who wrote this article. Let's pick it apart, shall we? Number 1, the argument that James Holmes was on nobody's radar before this. Every single time something like this happens, there's always someone who says, "Oh, he was so quiet and nice, I never suspected he'd be a mass murderer." John Allen Muhammad, the DC sniper, he discharged honorably as a sergeant in the military. You usually don't keep a rank like that if they didn't like you. The Columbine killers, Harris and Klebold, had some legal troubles at one point in their lives, but their parole officer said of one of them that they were a very bright individual who was likely to succeed in life. Cho, the Virginia Tech shooter, was said to be awkward and introverted, and even was put in a mental institution for a bit, but he had no criminal record to speak of. I'm sure these whack jobs at Natural News probably claim all of those were staged by the government for whatever reason too, but they're just bad people who did bad things, but managed to hide the fact that they were bad for quite a while. They exist, and should be scarier to you than any nonsensical conspiracy about the government boogeymen coming to get you. Number 2, the argument that James Holmes couldn't acquire the equipment or the knowledge to use it without specialized help. He had 4 guns that anyone can buy in the United States. They probably come with instructions. If they don't, what knowledge do you need? All you need to know is where do the bullets go, what end do you point at the thing you want killed, and what button do you press to make the bullets come out. Also, his rifle jammed on him, and he didn't know how to fix it, so he just dropped it and used a different gun. Not something a trained person would do. Body armor? Do a quick Google search. I found everything he was wearing in 5 minutes. Hell, a local surplus store 10 minutes from my place sells gas masks. And the bombs in his apartment? When I was 12, this is before the internet had become widely used or even really publicly available, I was using bulletin board systems. Think of them like a mini internet hosted on individual computers, each with their own separate phone numbers you had to dial into. On those BBSs, I came across the entire transcript of the Anarchist Cookbook. If 12-year-old me, with no internet access, could find a guide on how to make elaborate bombs, a 20-something med student with the internet should have had no fucking problem. And finally, number 3, the argument that he couldn't afford it because he was unemployed and a student. I would imagine the student loans you can get to become a doctor should be able to easily afford you all sorts of shit, especially when you drop out, stop paying tuition, and don't intend on paying back the loans. So, why did the government want to do this according to these people who wear tinfoil under their hats so aliens don't steal their thoughts? Well, because the UN is voting on a treaty very soon that could apparently result in representing nations not being allowed to carry small arms. And an incident like this could result in a majority of people being for that. And to take it one step further, these crackpots believe that by doing this, the government can then take full control, because citizens won't be able to protect themselves, and it's George Orwell's 1984 come true. Well, I got news for you on that one. The government can fucking do whatever they want, whenever they want, already. Why do you think they couldn't? You think a few hicks with guns can stop the US military from rolling tanks down your street tomorrow and saying, "Do what we say from now on or you're dead"? Who's gonna stop them? The Occupy movement? What are they gonna do, throw a fucking tent at them? Anything the government wants to do, they can already do. They don't need an excuse. The reason they don't is because every other civilized country wouldn't allow it, and it would result in a war. And the US is arrogant, but they don't believe they could win a world war against every other country. Their current war record is pretty shitty, having pretty well lost in Korea, Vietnam, Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan. They wouldn't fare too well against most of Europe, Canada, Russia, and Japan, all countries who would not support the USA enslaving its citizens. So, back to Holmes. Why did he just give up? He was clearly wearing body armor to engage the police, right? So you're saying a guy smart enough to buy all this shit, and smart enough to become a neurosciences doctor if he wanted to be, wouldn't be smart enough to know that the police would easily outnumber him and have armor-piercing bullets? No. He was wearing it for his best chance of survival, so he could become famous. Deranged fucks like this want to be caught. They want to be famous. He claimed he was the Joker. He wants all this attention. Plus the theory is that he was going back to his car to get another gun and more ammo, because he was out, and the cops were waiting for him there. He was unarmed, that's why he surrendered. And why did he tell the cops that his place was rigged to go off? Well, maybe he snapped out of it after he realized what he had done, and he didn't want to kill any more people. Or maybe he felt there were things in that apartment he now wanted discovered, things that he wouldn't want discovered if he had been killed first. Or maybe he wanted more innocent people to die. He apparently left really loud music playing and his door unlocked. I think he was hoping a neighbor would open the door and boom. However, since that didn't happen, he probably didn't want the cops to die because he was afraid if that happened, he'd be beaten and tortured in jail by the police while he awaited his trial. All better theories than he was on a mission from the government. So, conspiracy theorists, go back to trying to prove UFOs and Bigfoot exist. You get a better chance of that being right than some med student being Chuck.